one thing I like about the Mariners is as much as you can take the A's to task for moving their players around so much, the Mariners, I get a little bit more of a hint of a plan, at least a short-term plan to get ready and be good now.
Yep.
So it's Trader Jerry DePoto at the top of the front office leading this charge, and they've acquired Colton Wong and Teoscar Hernandez this offseason. They've added Luis Castillo at the trade deadline last year, and then I think and AJ Pollock. Let me not forget him. And then their farm system has been really good at developing pitchers. Most recently, which one of these new additions to the Mariners do you think is most crucial? I'm going to take Luis Castillo back off that offering for you.
Okay.
Real quick. I'm talking about just this offseason. None of them are really big names, although maybe Teoscar is, and maybe that's the right answer. But is there somebody that you think is going to be crucial for this team?
I'm torn between Teoscar and Colton for different reasons. I mean, Colton Wong has been one of the most consistent defenders at second base over the entirety of his career. I think he can really stabilize that middle infield. But Teoscar Hernandez represented a big need that the Mariners needed in the outfield. And I think he completely transforms, and we talked about this with the Angels. He lengthens that lineup, which already has Julio Rodriguez, Eugenio Suarez, and again, AJ Pollock, like you mentioned. I think the Mariners were very smart about their offseason. I think they went out and no, they didn't get the splashiest of names, but they got the pieces that really fit what they were going to build for. I don't know if the Mariners can hold off the Astros in the AL West. I don't know if the Mariners can win the division. I do firmly believe that if the Mariners put themselves in a position to again be a legitimate playoff team, that can go long. So for me, again, it may not be the blockbuster names that Mariners fans were hoping for, but I thought both Wong and Teoscar Hernandez were smart, efficient upgrades that really brought exactly what the Mariners were looking for and solidified those needs early.
Yeah. I think that there's a sneaky chance that Pollock is super important, and not because, but basically the same reasoning as you're giving about lengthening the lineup. But Teoscar, in a way, replaces Mitch Haniger, who I think. Maybe Teoscar, he's got more batted ball power. Mitch might have a slightly better plate approach. I think that favors Teoscar, but maybe not by a ton. Pollock is important for me because I do believe that the back end of this lineup gets a little iffy sometimes. And, if there's no step forward from JP Crawford, you've got, he's a steady Eddie Oatmeal type, but he's not a great step. He's not a great offensive piece. And then Jared Kelenic, he needs a really big step forward to become even an average offensive piece, I believe. And so that's two positions that aren't normally negatives. Now, Julio Rodriguez being a center fielder that's so great offensively, that does put them ahead of the game. Maybe they can afford JP Crawford to be just whatever he is, and Cal Raleigh is actually a decent offensive catcher. I have him pegged to break out a little bit more because he really improved his swinging strike rate over the course of the season. Just got better, and he already barrels the ball. So if he can make any contact, he could be better. But there's not a lot of teams that just have like a 0 in left field. Like offensively, it's usually a place that you find somebody that can play, that can hit, and you put him there. So Pollock kind of stepping forward or just regressing to better days, or Jared Kelenic taking a step forward. That to me seems like a bit of a it seems dramatic to say it this way, but a bit of an open wound. It's like when I look at this depth chart, I'm like, yes. Oh, left field, what are we doing here?
No, and I think that's fair. I think that's fair based on what we talked about, really, about how they're projected to be a legitimate playoff team. But playoff teams can get exposed if you have that one weakness. But one thing I do really like about the Mariners is their top three of the rotation. Right now, if you look at the fan graphs and their projections of the starters, the Mariners have three starters that are projected to have a sub-4 ERA and post 170-plus innings this year, though that is Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, and Robbie Ray. And as we've learned in our journey through the postseasons over the years, teams with solid starting pitching will make it farther than teams without it. And obviously you have Luis Castillo, an established ace there. I like what Logan Gilbert's done. I like Robbie Ray here. And you're looking at other guys in this rotation too. I know George Kirby, Marco Gonzalez may not move that needle all that often, but when you have those three guys that I mentioned with the projections that they do, you suddenly feel a little bit more confident that if you're looking at a playoff team, you have the guys that you want to consistently be able to toe the rubber. Mariners were a really good team last year. To be a good team in the playoffs, you have to have surefire starting pitching, and I do think they have that at the top of their rotation.
Yes, I absolutely love this starting rotation, and I think that the Fangraphs actually doesn't have it really correctly. They've got them as sort of a middling starting rotation. I don't see that at all.
I don't either.
See this as a top rotation, and I think part of that is Luis Castillo is in undergoing a little bit of a transition from a changeup sinker guy to a fastball, a four-seam slider guy, but he has all four in his bag. And he's been so consistent. And I know that he's not ever necessarily a guy that has popped for the Cy Young, but if you're consistently a top 10 or top 15 pitcher, that has a lot of value too. And that's just a lot to bank on. I can bank on Luis Castillo. If I want upside, I think Logan Gilbert and George Kirby have it in spades. Logan Gilbert has a really, really good fastball, and he's tinkering with it. He came to camp with a new splitter, and he's always got a new slider, but one of those is gonna really tick and feed into that fastball, and he can be a power pitcher. He loves Justin Verlander, and I think there's some chance that he becomes a Justin Verlander type. He has that good of a fastball. And then George Kirby is Aaron Nola for me. He's got amazing command. He's elite command like Aaron Nola. He has developed a breaking ball like Aaron Nola. Not an exact in terms of mechanics or looks, but it is that sort of elite command with developing stuff profile that I think is a top of the rotation guy. Now, Robbie Ray and Marco Gonzalez are your veterans, and I think that they're fine for what you need them to be. And then we talked about having a swingman on your roster. Chris Flexen is that guy where he's going to be in the pen, or he's going to do some starts, and he's just going to be there.
Would you say he could flexing between the
rows?
Rows?
That's right. Oh man, that was right there for me. But and then even have Emerson Hancock as a young guy that can come up and if someone gets hurt. So I think that, and then that relief squad is nasty.
I'm looking at those guys when I'm looking at guys like Andres Munoz, like Diego Castillo. Like these are guys that I think through all the teams that we've talked about in this division, I would give the advantage to the overall pitching staff to Seattle, no question.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, to pick anybody over the Astros, you get a little sweaty under the collar. But I mean, Andres Munoz, 100 miles an hour with a 90-mile-an-hour slider. Paul Sewald is the funkiest pitcher on any of these rosters, and nobody can seem to see him right. Diego Castillo throws real hard. Matt Brash is coming to town this year with a cutter, which will help him even if he's in the pen. Penn Murphy is this weird sidearm guy. I mean, I actually love this bullpen so much. I actually went and visited them when they were in Modesto. And so I got to know much of this pen in Modesto, and they just fit together so well, and they really liked each other, and they liked the starting pitchers. And I think there's a little bit. You remember when the Royals came up and they just had all been in the minor leagues together?
Yes.
I don't think that I get that feeling so much on the hitting side for the Mariners, but I definitely get that from the pitchers where Logan knows what Kirby's up to, and will make a comment about, oh, have you seen what Kirby's doing with the slider, and all these guys are talking to each other and rooting for each other and have known each other for a while. So there's that. So, okay, I'm with you, man. Best pitching staff in the AL West, soup to nuts, as they might say. The lineup, I'm going to have to see how Colton Wong deals that. One of the things that is so tough too is his park is a little bit of an issue. I think park plus injury kind of chewed up Jesse Winker last year.
Sure.
And it's done it to other players too. So every time you kind of bring a new player here, you're a little bit nervous. Like, can Colton Wong still get his 10, 15 homers and be a plus offensively? He also was one of the largest drops in year-to-year defensive stats I've ever seen. and the other was JP Crawford. So there's this
Oh,
weird thing where up the middle last year, the Mariners' two guys were rated really poorly, like bottom of the league by like outs above average, the Savant stat. And so, but that's weird because, you know, what would happen from one year to the next? Their sprint speeds weren't that different. They seemed athletically fine. So, you know, I think that might be some noise, but it is something I wanted to mention. But overall, this is a fun squad. You know, if Jared Kelenic gets it together, that's going to be a huge thing for him. That you know, we've been talking about this team to team a little bit, right? Like if there is one guy who could step forward on this team, it's Jared
that's
Kelenic,
the one.
right?
That's your X factor right there if you're Seattle.
I mean, if he steps forward, everything looks different. Now they have credible major league offensive and defensive like guys at every position. They have some, you know, flexibility with Dylan Moore. They've got, you know, they've got everything they need. But without him, it's just what does that back end of that lineup look like? So fascinated to see what his season looks like. I wouldn't say that I have that much hope for him, but you know, he's come to town with a new swing. It is that time of year. Everyone's got a new swing.
Something new.
But I think that hidden within that for him is something interesting. Is that is a sign that he's struggled enough to listen. And I have seen young players get to that point where they struggle enough to really listen, and that can be a real chance to improve.